basically that's a collective email where you can address if you have questions or you need some help in using some of the tools, or you want to see if there is a possibility of a training in your own country. So that's an email where the entire team of Google News Lab might answer and address you to the right person to answer your needs. Okay. I just want to briefly introduce you the News Lab website. Google News Lab is a team that's basically been created a couple of years ago with the specific aim of supporting newsrooms and journalists in their work, so facilitating the use and integration of technology in the journalistic work. And the website, it's also a platform for training. You can actually use it as a training center. There are lots of tutorials and courses on the specific tools that Google has created and produced. And I just show you briefly. For example, if we go to the theme of today, so data journalism, we will see some of these tools today, but you can also go back and see the tutorial and helps you going step by step to improve your knowledge of the tool and to use your tool. So you can go back over and over again. Of course, it's a free website, but it's been designed with the specific idea of talking to journalists. So it's kind of designed with lots of examples of the usage of these kind of tools within the journalistic content context. Okay, so today we focus on data and on the possibility of using data in journalism and sources of data. And I'm not going to define what data journalism is anymore, because we've been speaking about that, I think, for the last few years. Particularly this festival, we had so many opportunities to discuss the great advantage of using data in journalism. But I just want to go straight and show you where you can get data, how you can work with data. So we go to see directly where you can actually find the data, how you import the data in a table, and how you can access some platform to actually get interesting data for your work. So the first thing, I will go up out of my presentation and directly online. The first thing I want to show you is the Google Public Data Explorer. Let me just enlarge a bit this. Okay, the Google Public Data Explorer, it's a platform that basically interacts with a number of data sets that are provided by institutions. So you might find, depending on the language you select here, you might find, for example, in Italian there are very few, I have to say, very few data sets available. There are many more if I select English, and so you might want to try different point of access. Definitely the English one is the one that's richer in terms of data. It's a platform that allows you to explore data that are provided by, for example, the World Bank or the World Economic Forum or the WTO and so on. So by institutions which have their own data, they produce their own data. They, of course, also have data on their website, but they also upload the data here, so it makes easier for a common person to actually explore this data. To show you how it works, I just go on the World Bank one. The World Bank, of course, for many of us, it's an important source of data. And we can explore the data, choosing the kind of indicator we want to see. For example, I might go for environment. Let's say the percentage of agricultural irrigated land. And then I go and look for the country I want to compare. So down here, you see there are the countries that have provided that kind of data. Let's say that we want to compare, for example, Brazil with, let's say, China. Okay, you see, and you see the graphic that is being produced on the right side. Maybe France, just to give you an example. Okay, France, we have very little data. Maybe, again, let me see. Okay, India, right. So you have the data set. Basically, you pick the country you want to compare. You can, of course, pick and select and unselect, right? And on the right, you have the data that are available that appear like that. You can actually also pick a shorter range of time. So here the data that's available, the latest data is 2012. So it's not really that up to date, of course. In some other indicators, you might have much more updated kind of data. The nice thing about this graphic, as you see, you can pick the frame that you want to use, and you can actually embed this graphic in your website. By going up here on the link, you see, you can have a link, but you also have an iframe. So as a YouTube video or an image, you just take that iframe and put it in the HTML page of your website, and this graphic will be displayed there. And it's a kind of interactive graphic where your user or reader can explore the graphic, you see, point by point, seeing the data appearing. So it's pretty nice, I think. Now, how I use this? I use this to create a contest. Of course, I never use this for original, really fresh and up-to-date data, but I might use it when I'm trying to put a story in a contest. Let's say I'm talking about, in this case, agriculture and how agriculture has evolved through the years in different countries. I might be able to use some of this data and produce a graphic very, very quickly instead of having to collect the data, create my own table, and then visualize that table. So you can use it really as a sort of resource that you need when you need something quick and you need something quick to put something in contest. Normally, of course, we try to use tables to create our own tables. So we have data that are collected from maybe different sources, or maybe our National Institute of Statistics, or some reports, or so on. Where do I put that data? Usually I use a Google datasheet, and it's not because I'm a media trainer for Google. I've been using datasheet for a long time. I used to use Excel a lot, I have to say. It's a very powerful software. Excel allows you to create very powerful data sets. The only reason why I shifted into the Google datasheet is that this is online and can be shared easily and edited by multiple hands at the same time. So it makes it much easier to clean my data with other people working on that. For example, if I have this table, I can share the table from here directly with other people. Let's say I will share it with Guido, who is here in the room. And Guido can edit the table directly. So you might see Guido appearing up there, maybe, if he's connected. Oh, no, sorry. Just to show, sorry, we take you on. No, it's just very easy to see that he will appear, and he can edit the table at the same time, okay? If I don't want him to mess with my table, I can just share the possibility to view my table and send me comments. So you can give different levels of access. You see, here he can edit the table, but I can say he can comment or just visualize the table. The visualization is actually a very interesting feature because in data journalism, what we really often want to do is to provide our readers with the data that we have collected. So publish also our data set. And it's very, okay, see, you see Guido appearing up there. Okay, va bene, grazie. So you see Guido appearing here, and you see Guido now working on the table. I can tell you this is very useful when you're dealing with big data set and you're working with another person. And exactly with Guido a couple of years ago, maybe it was 4 years ago, we were dealing with a very important and big data set of schools in Italy. Actually, we're presenting the same work here. And we were using Excel at that time, and we were exchanging our data sets through email all the time. And it was a mad thing, because, of course, we kind of lost more than once the last editing that we have been doing, because you know, I was sending a table to him, he was sending back a table to me, and sometimes we were kind of getting confused where the modification had been done. Like here, it's very easy, it's very immediate. So you can open a Google datasheet directly from your drive. So if you have any Gmail account, you access your drive like that, your Google Drive from your account, okay? And then you just go here, new, and you open a data sheet, sorry. It's a very simple table. You can import data here. or you can copy and paste. You can import the table in many different formats, so from Excel, from CSV, and so on. I'll show you now in a minute what you have to do when you have to import a data in text format, so a CSV type of test. I just wanted to show you here a very nice feature of this kind of tool. Okay, you have all the normal type of tools that you have in Excel or in OpenOffice, if you want to use OpenOffice. Of course, the data is stored in cloud, so in a sense, that's also a help for me because I'm using lots of different tools and devices. I'm accessing my data usually from the phone, the tablet, the desktop, and then the notebook, so it's nice for me to have one point of access to my data. The other thing, though, is that I can actually produce very quickly some graphics. If I just select part of, for example, of my table and I want to see how this data looks, I just go down here, you see, Explore. And we'll give it a second. It will appear. Let's see. Okay, see? You have some graphics that appear here, okay? Now, there are different type of graphics. They're very simple, very immediate. Not all of them are proper for the type of data I have. So they're not necessarily the proper type of representation. For example, the cake one, it's definitely not good one in this case. The data that we're using here as an example are data that are comparing the access to internet in Italian regions. So the percentage of families that are connected to internet and percentages of families who are not connected. You can actually see that in Italy, more or less, we're still very badly connected. More or less half of the population is still not connected. These data are changing year by year, but we're still we still have a gap there. Anyway, it's very nice that I can actually explore the data and then maybe use one of these graphics. If I find a graphic that's useful for me, I can just clicking on the right top corner, I can import the graphic, and then I can modify the graphic. So I can modify the title if I want to have another type of title, for example. Okay, I can change the color. I can change the size, the font, everything. Once I'm happy with this graphic, I can actually publish this graphic. So this is a very simple way to produce quickly a very immediate graphic. We're not talking anything really fancy here, but you can go up here on the corner and go and say, I want to publish the graphic. I want to embed the graphic in my website, okay? I want to publish it, yes, I confirm, and there I have an iframe that's generated. So I can very quickly analyze a table and produce a graphic. This might be nice. I'm not saying it's a particularly sophisticated type of data visualization, but it might be very nice if, for example, every day I'm checking some type of data. Let's say every day I'm checking the temperature, or every day I'm checking the air pollution data. I can actually show them very quickly on my website, day by day. I don't need to be working a lot on the graphic production, okay? Again, very important, when I'm creating the iframe, you can actually change the height and the width of your graphic. So the system usually gives you like just one type of height and width, but you just need to go into the code and change that number. It's very easy. Okay. Any questions here? Right, so most of the time, the data that I find around is not in an Excel table. It's not in that kind of format. So you can just go and click and open a table. Very often, it's something like this. Now, this is what is called a CSV. I just enlarge it so you can see it. That's a very typical type of format for data that are published, particularly by public administration. It's a very common set of open data. It's just simple text, no other strings attached. So it's very clean, and lots of software can actually use this kind of data. And that's the reason why it's one of the most preferred one. But of course, it's not readable. If I'm reading like that, there is no way I can actually even just have a look at the table like that, okay? So what I need to do here, every line, it's a line of a table, right? What I need to do is just to see exactly what's separating my data. You see here, I have a line, for example, so May, Lombardia, we're talking about maybe, sorry. For the recording, right? Thank you. Okay, so if you see here, for example, each line, it's a line of data, and the data are separated by a semicolon, right? So that's the only thing I need to know. And sometimes the data is separated by a comma, sometimes by a semicolon, sometimes by a line. I need to know which kind of separator it's used in my table. That's all I need to know. And then I can go and open my data set. Let's open a new one. And we just go here and import our data. Oops. So let's go and I put my data on my desktop. Let's see. There it is. It's a CSV. Open that. Right, so now the system asks me, what's the kind of separator that's used in this table? So we see that it's a semicolon. We just give it here, customize that, and import. And now my data is displayed in a table. So it's a much easier and much cleaner in a way to look at. And then I can start maybe, for example, I might want to start exploring it, even a subset. I go to explore and start looking at how my data displays, okay? So these are two simple steps. Either I import directly an Excel table, or I have to import a CSV table and try to instruct my system to actually have the proper separator. Okay, so I can use that kind of system to visualize my data, or I can use Fusion Table. How many of you have used Fusion Table? Right, to produce data graphics or maps? Maps. Usually, it's actually the best use of Fusion Table is to produce map. But anyway, Fusion Tables. Just want to create one. Okay. No, let's go back, sorry. Okay. If I want to create a Fusion table, I just go directly onto this other interface. Fusion tables are a tool that's been around for a while, so you see the interface is not as immediate. It's been there for some time now. So you need to import a data set again. So you might want to, for example, import a spreadsheet in your Fusion table. We go and try to find a spreadsheet we like. Let me just get a proper one. Oh, let's see. Sorry. Okay. Right, so there is a preview that shows you how your data set is being imported. You can see if it's being imported in a proper way. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes, for example, if your data originally is not organized in a table, but it's like, let's say you have some cells are merged or some lines are merged, then you might not see it as neat. So it's very important to start with a proper table. And then you go next. Now, this is a very important interface. Here you need to put a title to your table, a description. Anytime we use a tool like this, so if we produce a map, a table, anything, we need to give all of this description, because these are the description that allow this object to be found by the search engine. So don't just overlook these things, because otherwise your table will never be searchable. No one will ever find it, okay? Also, it's an important feature here. You can allow the export of the table. That's also important because, for example, in the case of a data journalism practice, you might want the table to be available to your audience, to your readers. So it's also possible for them to export the table and maybe then to use it for further analysis, okay? Very important, the attribution, where you get the data from, and also maybe the page link of your attribution, and then you go ahead. Okay, so here we have our table that's being imported. Now, the good thing about Fusion Table is once the table has been imported, you can actually create as many graphics as you want and also as many maps as you want from the same set. You just go here on the plus, here, and for example, you add a chart. Let's say we take a very simple one, maybe like this, okay, just a bar chart. And you can select the type of values you want to visualize. Let's say I have a comparison between different type of workers in the agricultural field. So for example, I want to compare just the first two sets of values. I just pick the first two sets of values, okay? I can sort them by region. I can decide if I want to display 10 or all of them, for example, all my categories. You see all the 20 Italian regions. And that's my graphs, my chart. I can also change the appearance of this chart. So if I want to, for example, change, let's say, the title, or I want to change from here, the appearance, the title, let's say, Lavoratori. Let's put it in blue and maybe with a very big font, okay? And then I want to put the legend on the right, or I want to put the legend on the bottom, or I want to change this kind of feature, the type of font, okay? So you see, in this case, the legend has gone down on the bottom, so I can move some things around. And then once I'm done, I can publish this. Again, I'm going to create an iframe to import this chart in my web page. So what I do here is go to Chart, Publish. Again, it will tell me, this table at this moment is still private. It's working in your drive. So you have to make it public if you want to publish it in a website. So you change the visibility here, and you just say, please make this public on the web. Okay. And then I'll go here and say, publish. And I will get my iframe. Again, I can change, you see, the dimension of my chart. So here it's 500 per 300, but I can decide to make it bigger or smaller, whatever I need. I can include the data attribution directly in my chart. So it's a very simple type of chart, but there are a lot of characteristics that come with it that allow this chart to be linked to the data and the source. And I think this is what it's very important. Now, if I want to create another chart from the same table, I don't need to reload the table. I just go here and add another chart. For example, this time I prefer to use a line, and I just want to use maybe the comparison between the last two categories, okay? So the same thing. I can go ahead and produce as many charts as I want and embed them. What's very good here is that if I change my data set, my original data set, I can directly get the charts updated. So if I have made a mistake, for example, I made a mistake when I was editing everything and I realized that after the chart is already on the page, I can also go back, just edit my table, and all the charts will be updated. So I don't need to reprocess all the charts, I just need to correct the table, okay? And actually, I just need to correct the original table. So then the Fusion table will be updating and the entire process will be much smoother. I can also add a map. I'll just quickly show you. I have two ways of adding a map here. The first one is just allowing Google to recognize the geographic data, which is the case of this particular table. We have the name of the regions. So the system, the Google database, it's of course able to recognize the names of the region, and it's mapping my data on the different regions, okay? It's just geocoding, right? So the location column is, of course, the region. You see, this is a very basic map. You almost don't see the place marks, so we might want to change that. We just want to have maybe a much bigger icon. Or we might want to display our data in buckets, because, for example, it's much nicer to show our data in 3 or 4 buckets, depending on the numbers that we have, okay? So we might want to change the icons here. Okay, just to give you an example. Right. So this is nice, but if I have to be honest, I prefer, when I have to use placemark, to use another tool, which I discussed 2 days ago, but I'll just quickly show you again. It's My Maps, okay? My Maps, it's a way of making a map that's much nicer now in terms of when I have a map with placemark, because I can actually change the icons and customize the map much more, right? So if you go to the g.co newslab/newslab, you find a tutorial to actually use My Maps. It's extremely immediate, very nice. Or you can get the video. We did this workshop on My Maps 2 days ago, and there are all the video on the festival site. But I strongly recommend you to go and look at that, because if you want to do a map with placemark, My Maps is a better tool to do that. What's good here is Fusion Table allows you to prepare a map for intensity. So you can actually display the intensity of the data using polygons, not points, okay? I'll show you in a minute what I mean. We can basically merge the table that we have produced with another table that displays the geographic data in polygons. I need to give to the system the information, the geographic information, to design the perimeter of each region, okay? Let's try this, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Merge. Okay. Now, the geographic data in Google is in KML format. The format we use to design polygons, it's in KML. That's the basic type of format that's used in Google Earth, Google Maps. That's the type of geographic data. You might find very often that the geographic data is displayed in other type of format, like shapefile, so SHP, for example, or other type of formats. Sometimes you can convert them amongst them. It's very, very easy. Now, let's find KML of regions. So I have another table here. I'm merging. It's called Fusion Table for a reason, right? I'm merging 2 tables that have one column in common, which is the column with the names of the regions. So my table, the one I uploaded before, was Italian regions with data. Now I'm fusing this, merging this with another table with names of the regions and the geographic data for each region, okay? So they, of course, have to have one column in common in order to merge. Okay, we see the merge table that's been created. There. You see, my table, it's a bit different from before now. There are 2 additional columns. Where is my... Sorry, the microphone? So I have my original table, regions and numbers, and the second table I've used, which is regions and the geographic data, the KML. If I go and explore each KML, you see the KML, that's the data. It's basically a series of points that are drafting the entire perimeter of a region, okay? I'll just show you. We can actually have a preview here as well. See? That's the geographic data I'm importing. So in this case, I'm actually trying to use this system to visualize my data in an intensity way, so showing a different type of color or intensity of color depending on the data, okay? I don't know if this is clear, but it will be hopefully in a second. Okay, I go here and say add a map, but at this point, the location needs to be the geometry, not the place mark anymore. Oh, we lost Piemonte. Okay, maybe the data is missing. But you see what I mean? I have all tiles now. Each region is covered. Of course, I don't want to have a uniform color for all my data. That's not useful. So I will go and change again the feature and fill the polygons depending, for example, on a gradient, depending on the type of data I have, you see? In this case, I see where the data is more intense, like more workers in this case, it's in Sicily, and the regions that are lighter have a lower number of workers in agriculture. Or I can also change in terms of making, for example, buckets. Again, let's say that we want to do maybe 4 buckets with different colors. Okay, you can actually change the numbers. You can decide how big your buckets are going to be, which numbers are they going to cover. But you see how much more effective it is a map like that than a map with place mark when I'm trying to visualize different type of data and make it immediately clear which is the region which has the highest number of workers or whatever. Of course, I can change the colors and make the colors much more logical and attached to the data that I am displaying. Any questions on this? Yes?
Is it possible to, in the attribution, is it possible to add a logo to whatever I'm creating?
Yes, you just need to add a column and add images or logo, so you can add the logo, no problem.
No, if I want to add the logo of my magazine or company or whatever to the map or to the chart, or is it possible? Just one logo?
Yeah. In the attribution there, you can put the name, the logo, whatever you want, and the link. No problem. Other question? Yeah.
In case of forest fire, so I can recognize the municipality in which the forest fire was happening in summer and in winter, comparing. How can I put those data that you were merging? I mean, should I identify previously and then emerge, and how can I identify?
Okay, the very big challenge here is getting the data, okay? So once you have the data, let's say you have a table where you have, for example, a list of municipalities with the forest, the number of fires, so that you have, let's say, summer, winter. So you have 3 columns, summer, winter, and municipalities. You have to look for the KML of the municipalities. So, for example, in Italy, you can get those geographic data from the National Institute of Statistics, ISTAT, but they gave you in another format. It's given in shapefile. It's SHP. You can convert that data online. There are lots of converters. As you convert MP3 to whatever else, WAV or the other way, as you convert, AVI to MOV, whatever it is, you can convert shapefile to KML or the other way around. When you're really in trouble and you need to find a very specific type of, like something that's not a municipality or a region, you can draw. You can draw directly on maps. You can draw the polygon and extract the KML. That's something you can do. It's very quick. I'll show you. In my maps, but directly in maps, you go in maps, for example. Yeah, and you go in my maps. So, my maps. Create a map. And there are lots of tools when you create a map. Here, you can draw a line and create a shape, you see. Let's say, sorry, let me just enlarge this a bit because it makes sense when we're talking about an environment, like a territory which is, oh my God, I keep going always on. Okay, so you just go like that, for example, and that's your polygon, okay? Area 1, let's say. You can save this, and once you've saved it, you can actually export it. You can export this in KML. So once you have that KML, you can import the KML in Fusion Table. So if you don't find the KML of a region because it's not like a region, a province, or a municipality, it's an area where something is happening, you can draw it by hand and export your KML. You're welcome. Okay, so this is regarding, let's say, data visualization of data that I produce, so I find, I put together, and so on. Now, the last 20 minutes we have, I would like to go on Google Trends. Has anyone used Google Trends before? No? Yes? Okay. And to do what? Sorry, just want a couple of examples. Yeah.
So I pick headlines. I use terms and headlines based on what I see in Google.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I use terms and headlines based on what I see in Google Trends. So if I have a debate over using a term, I'll use the one on Google Trends that trends the highest.
Right. Okay.
That's
so
my little secret. Oops.
from the query. Well, it's okay. Someone else that want to share? Yeah.
I'm using it for search engine optimization reasons to test certain keywords and look when to place them on the web.
This is really, both examples are in line with what many journalists are doing, trying to use Google Trends to see what people are looking for and then using maybe those words, and we'll see that in a minute. There is also much more you can do on Google Trends though. So, first of all, what's Google Trends? It's a platform that's basically giving back all the data in real time related to searches done by people on Google. So, of course, you always have to keep in mind that Google is not present everywhere, so you don't want to be looking for data in countries where maybe, well, it's not maybe that significant in countries where Google is not really present. But where it is present, of course, you might find interesting way of measuring, let's say, the pulse of your audience, because the people who are on search usually ask questions that are different from the questions that are asked on a social network. Okay? If I'm on a social network, let's say I'm on Twitter or on Facebook, it's my profile. I might express my views in a way, but on the search engine, I can actually ask questions that are, they are anonymous. Of course, the data are anonymous as well. So it might be very interesting to see what people are asking for, which is a bit different than looking for what people are expressing. There are two different ways, okay? So it's very nice when you get on the platform, you can, first of all, on the home page, you can pick the country you're interested in. Let's say when you land, for example, this computer is landing always on USA, but I can change this and go, let's say, to Italy, for example. And the home page changes because what you see on the home page are the top trending stories, the most trending stories that people are looking for. So basically, you see real-time data of the searches that are done in Google by people. Let's say we take the first one, for example. You can see that here on the right, there are the profiles. We'll see that in a minute. The profiles of searches, like the type of peaks are very different because depends a lot. One story and another, they have different search stories, okay? So let's click on the first one. And here you see a carousel of the Google News articles. So on the top, you can see which kind of news have been circulated in Google News that might be influencing that kind of search. And you have a link directly, you see, to the media. And here you see the trend of search done by people in Google. We're talking about the overall Google system, Google search. You can also see, and we can also go into, for example, only YouTube. That's another story, we'll see it in a minute. But here you see how the trends goes, and you see the cycle between media and searches. So in this case, for example, you might have that some media published the news, and then the people have been looking for that because they've read it or heard it on the TV or heard it on the radio, okay? Other times, the trends are completely different. Sometimes the trends are that people are searching because they heard something, maybe they heard something on social media, and the news come after, okay? You can go down and see the interest by region, and you can see the most trending query. So what people are actually asking for. So the things that they are actually typing into the search engine, okay? The query. Let me try another news. Let's take maybe In Italy, very often it's football. I don't know in other countries, but in Italy, very often it's football. Okay, let me go down to Oliver Stone and Vladimir Putin in Lucca. You see here very different kind of trends. For example, these peaks here are not related to news. So it might be that, for example, on social media, there has been a surge of interest on this, or something has happened going somewhere that people are actually searching for that. I'll give you just a very quick example. Last 2 weeks ago, I was giving a workshop like this on a Monday morning, the day after the MotoGP. So there was a huge trend in Italy for an Italian actress, let's say, or soubrette, and was a huge peak associated with her name. There was no news, though. The thing is that she was in the box of one of the motorbikers, and the TV camera had actually focused on her for a few seconds, and people had started going looking for association between her and that biker, okay? Because apparently they have a story, something like that, okay? So the thing is that you could see the peak of search was very evident, was very popular, but there was no news, so no news associated with that, okay? So you can really see what people are looking for in a certain time, in a certain place. So let's say in Italy at this stage, and you can actually select also a category. So let's say we are here in the home page, but you can actually go and try to see per category what people are looking for. For example, if we're looking not the overall topics, and we focus only on health and well-being, then of course the topics are different, and you might find other type of interest, okay? So for example, the ER, okay? And again, you see peaks are different compared also to the news. Okay, one thing it's important to remember here is that you can actually take these graphics, these charts, and you can embed them. If you go up here, you can do incorpora, embed, okay? You can share them on the media, on the social media, you can share them easily, but you can actually embed them on your website. If we're talking about things that are trending now, you can actually keep the data up to date. So you're embedding the chart on your web page, and then while the data are changing, you see the graphic updating as well. So it might be nice when you're looking for something that's happening and still in evolution. Let's say, for example, yesterday with the lorry and truck in Stockholm, you could maybe see what people were looking for and follow the news during the day, just seeing how that trending was going, okay? So you might embed the chart at the minute when you get the news, and then keep having it updated on your website. Okay, same thing for the map. The map can be updated, can be embedded as well, and can be updated as well. So you might see which regions are most active in searching that kind of topic, and the related query. So when people say, I use it to pick terms, that's where you actually look for. You're looking for the way people are looking for that kind of topic, and maybe find a term that's more relevant and more commonly used, okay? So before I go ahead, I want to clarify what is trends, what is measuring trends, okay? It's an index, it's not an absolute number. It's an index that's basically comparing the popularity of a topic, of a search, compared to the overall search done at in the same time frame in the same region. So if I take in Italy, in the overall searches, some of the searches compared to the overall volume are top trending, and the top is 100. It's just set as 100, so all the others are basically related to this 100. So if I have top trending is one topic, and another topic is 60, it's 60%. Compared to the 100%, okay? So we don't have absolute number. This is very important because in this way you can dynamically see when you, for example, go for categories or you go in a region, you can adjust continuously the numbers, and even local stories can emerge. It's not that easy all the time that local stories emerge in countries that have, like for example in Italy, that's a problem sometimes because we don't have enough search volumes to see some stories emerging, okay? But we'll see that in a minute. So we were basically on the home page, and that's how the home page works. Now, let's go to the nicest feature of Trends, which is Explore. Up here in the menu, you explore, and you can actually create your own search. Let's say you can use up to 5 terms. So let's say you want to compare how people are searching for 2 or 3 different terms. Let's say Vladimir Putin, I'm taking very important international terms, okay? And Donald Trump. Okay, and you can add as many as you want. I just want to make the example. So you can see how these 2 terms are looked at in the entire world, or country by country. You can pick the country, okay? So let's say, entire world, this is the trend, and this is how people are looking for that. Keep in mind that Google is not that spread in Russia, so I wouldn't really compare that in that sense. I wouldn't take that as a very solid comparison when we're talking about Russia, because in terms of penetration of Google in Russia, we can't really compare that with the Western countries. That being said, it's interesting to see how certain searches are different country by country, okay? Again, all of these charts are, of course, embeddable. Not only they can be embedded, you can download the data in CSV. For example, if I want to use this chart to compare it with other situation, let's say I want to have the world situation, and then I will go and look country by country, I can download my data, and you see, I go back to a CSV. Sorry, let me close this, and I'll show you this CSV. See, a text, as we did before. You can import that in a table and visualize it as you wish, so in a different way, okay? Let's say we don't want to see it worldwide. We want to see the comparison between these two terms in Italy. So let's go, Italia. Right, so Trump definitely much more searched. The interest is all on Trump. But then you can see basically the 2 terms, and you can see when people search for Putin, what they ask. When people search for Trump, what do they ask? Okay? So that you can really see also which are the queries that are associated with that search term. You can pick the time frame you want. It's not only the 5 years. You can go from 2004 to the present, okay? Or you can pick a very specific, let's say last 90 days, for example. Okay? So last 90 days, you can see again, in Italy, Trump is definitely dominating the searches compared to Vladimir Putin. But again, you can find which queries are most inserted by people. You can search Google, or you can search YouTube. It's actually quite interesting when you're looking for a comparison between what people are looking for in the search engine or in YouTube. Let's say you're talking about not the 2 presidents, but for example, 2 pop stars. You might find very different trends of searches in the general search engine and in YouTube. Because of course, for example, there are a number of people who start their search in YouTube, particularly young people very often access YouTube before they access the search engine, okay? Right, let me change the terms. I want to show you another example. Okay, let's say I want to look for, sorry, I put this in Italian because my interface here is in Italian, but let's say I want to search for meningitis against influenza, flu. So I take Italy, last 90 days, and that puts, for example, these 2 diseases in comparison, okay? Now, in the last 90 days, you see that a lot of interest is towards influenza, because at this moment, lots of people are having influenza, so they're looking for information. What they're looking for, let's go and see. Influenza, they're looking for the negatives. Influenza negative, wow. If we take the last year, 12 months, oh, I'm in YouTube, sorry. Go back in Google, sorry. Okay, that's very important. Actually, I was a bit surprised because if you take the last 12 months, in Italy we have an epidemics of meningitis, particularly focusing a couple of regions. And you can see that there are some peaks, and the peaks are associated with deaths. So when there were like a couple of very important cases of deaths, especially of kids for meningitis, you can see that there are peaks of searches, okay? Now, you can see the interest per region. This year, in general, the flu season has been very mild, while the meningitis is really on the news all the time. So you see that overall, the entire country is much more searching for meningitis. But then if we look, meningitis is much stronger in Tuscany, which is, in fact, the region that is having this huge problem for the last couple of years of a very high number of infected people, okay? And you see what people are looking for, what they're asking. They're asking for cases, they're asking for vaccines, and so on. And then the flu. Of course, the most common question is symptoms, because people are trying to understand which kind of symptoms are associated with the flu this year compared to the one in previous years, because flu are different year by year, okay? So, as before, you can embed the graphics, you can download the data, you can actually go and see regionally what's happening, okay? If you click on a region, you see, we click on Tuscany, you can actually go and see the situation in the region and looking directly at the different towns and cities, okay? So you can get to the level of data that are associated to towns. See? You can see Pisa, Lucca, and the different cities, and what people are actually asking associated with that. Same thing with the flu. You can actually also compare a same topic in different regions. So do the other thing around. Let's say we go back to Italia here. And you can say, for example, meningitis in... You add a filter here, and you say in Tuscany, Toscana. And then we want to see meningitis compared to Italy, or compare, for example, to another region. Let's say we want to have Emilia-Romagna. So you see the same topic in two different regions, how it went, the kind of peak. Now, when we talk about Italy, we're talking about a small country, but when you're talking a big country, for example, like the United States, you very often see very important difference between one state and another inside the United States. Now, in the last few minutes I just want to give you example of how people are using trends, for example, to cover important topics like election. Okay, first of all, I like to show you this couple of examples. This is very similar to what we just searched. You can use, for example, the comparison between two different searches to actually explain what happened when there is a peak. There has been a peak of epidemics, there has been a death case, there's been something that can explain that kind of peak, okay? You can compare the preference, for example, for a TV show or for books or for autos or whatever, right? So you can actually explore the data to see how different regions compare in choosing or picking certain things. In this case, it's Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. You know that after Trump won the primary election, so before he became a president, there was a surge of people asking for moving to Canada. And I think it's very nice what The Economist did. They did a comparison on the last 5 years, so they started from 2004 actually, last 10 years or more. And they used moving to Canada as a search, comparing UK and US. and found that there were 4 peaks that came out in this long term. So what happened in these 4 moments? The first peak was a surge in the United States and was associated with the re-election of George Bush. The second peak was in Britain in 2008 when the Prime Minister from Canada went to Britain and was inviting people to actually move to Canada to invest because there are lots of opportunities and jobs. And then the last 2 peaks are the recent one after the Brexit and after Donald Trump election, okay? So it's interesting to use this system also to describe how certain things happen and how people react to different type of events in their own country. If I still have 2 minutes, I know that we are almost done. 2 minutes, okay? I just want to give you an example of how people can use data, you see. These are actually visualizations that have been produced directly by Google News Lab. You can find them in the Google Trends Twitter channel. I will show you in a second. So these are the data that have been extracted, Trump versus Clinton, for example, you see, in real time, and they've been visualized in a different way. So not the visualization we saw within Trends, but extracted, I know. Okay, same thing here, how people are responding in real time to an event. You might have, for example, even just like a debate, a TV debate, and then you go and check how people are reacting online to that debate, asking questions and trying to find information on the people who are there, on the topics that are being discussed. And again, you can see how an election has shifted in time, so in a longitudinal way. I'm done. And you can compare how people around the world use the data, search for different issues. So for example, as we did before, you could see in the world, let's say, we take 5 key questions, and then we try to see how the different regions search for that kind of term. Okay, and then you can create a visualization. But the thing is that I can say, for example, terrorism, and we see which countries are looking for that, in which way, and then I take, whatever, Ebola, when it was a big global term, and see, you know, with the different topics, how the interest for that kind of topic changes country by country. Okay, there are many more examples. You can find lots of them also on the Google News Lab website, which I want to show you again, g.co/newslab here. You see there are lots of examples here, and there is a channel dedicated to Google Trends, so you find a lot of information on how to use the tool and a lot of good examples. And the last thing I want to show you is the Twitter channel. Where you can have lots of real-time, again, information on what people are looking for. So if you want to see how Google Trends is actually reading the data, let's say, it's the same type of data you can access if you go on Trends, but sometimes it's nice to get that just as to maybe highlight what's happening somewhere else. So, okay. I don't know if we have time for at least 1 question. No, we don't. I'm really sorry. I'll be out here anyway if you have any questions, and I just want to leave you my email as well in case you need some more information. Okay, that's my email at Google, and if you need any more information, just write me and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much.